$104,215. That's the average American household debt in 2024. Credit cards, student loans, car payments, mortgages, it adds up. And if you're listening right now feeling like you're drowning in debt, I want you to know something. You're not alone. And more importantly, this is not the end of your story.
In fact, today, we're going to show you exactly how thousands of people have climbed out of six-figure debt, some in just a few years. And no, they didn't win the lottery. Welcome back to Money Story House. I'm Marcus.
And I'm Morgan. If you're new here, welcome to the family. This is the place where we break down money topics in a way that's actually enjoyable to listen to. No boring lectures, no confusing jargon, just real talk about building wealth and taking control of your financial life.
If you haven't already, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button right now. Tap the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We drop new content every week, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming.
You can find us at youtube.com/@moneystoryhouse. Link is in the description. Okay, now let's get into today's topic.
Today, we're tackling one of the most requested topics from our listeners, debt. And I want to be clear from the start, this is going to be a judgment-free zone. We're not here to shame anyone. We're here to give you a real, actionable roadmap to financial freedom.
Here's what we're covering in the next 90 minutes. First, we'll talk about the psychology of debt, why it happens, and why it feels so hopeless.
Then we'll break down the two most powerful debt payoff strategies that actually work. We'll teach you how to negotiate with creditors. Yes, you can actually do that. And we'll share real stories of people who went from hundreds of thousands in debt to completely debt-free.
So grab a notebook, grab a pen, pause if you need to, and let's get into it.
Let's start with why debt feels so overwhelming. And I think the first thing we need to acknowledge is that debt isn't just a math problem, it's an emotional problem.
Absolutely. When you're in debt, it affects everything. Your sleep, your relationships, your self-worth. I've talked to people who say they feel physically sick when they check their bank account. That knot in your stomach when a bill comes in, that panic when your card gets declined, it's real and it's exhausting.
And here's the thing, that shame keeps people from addressing it. Studies show that people in debt often avoid looking at their statements. They avoid answering calls from unknown numbers. They avoid talking about money with anyone, even their spouse or partner. It's like this dirty secret that everyone carries but nobody talks about.
It's like if you don't look at it, it doesn't exist. But of course, it does exist, and it's growing. Every month you avoid it, that interest is compounding, that balance is getting bigger, and the problem gets harder to solve.
Let's look at some numbers. And I promise this isn't to make anyone feel worse. It's to show you that this is a systemic issue, not a personal failure. You ready for this?
Hit me with it.
The average American household debt is over $104,000. That includes everything: mortgages, car loans, student loans, credit cards. Average credit card debt alone, about $6,500 per person. Average student loan debt, over $37,000. And here's the big one. 77% of Americans are in some form of debt. That's more than 3 out of 4 people.
So if you're in debt right now, look around. Most of the people you know are in the same boat. This isn't a you problem. This is an everyone problem.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really frustrating. Credit card interest rates right now are averaging 24 to 28%.
Wait, can we talk about that for a second? 24 to 28%? That's insane. What does that actually mean in real terms?
Let me break it down. If you have $10,000 in credit card debt at 25% interest and you're only making minimum payments, you know how long it takes to pay that off?
I'm afraid to ask.
Over 20 years. And you know how much you'll pay in total? About $25,000. You're paying 2.5 times what you originally borrowed. The system is literally designed to keep you in debt.
That makes me angry. And I think that's part of why people feel hopeless. It's not just that they're in debt, it's that the math feels impossible.
Which brings us to the next question. Why do people get into debt in the first place? And I want to be really clear about this. It's rarely because people are irresponsible or bad with money.
Right. Let's bust that myth right now. The biggest causes of debt are things like medical emergencies. Did you know that medical bills are the #1 cause of bankruptcy in America? #1. In a country where a hospital visit can cost you tens of thousands of dollars, one accident or illness can wipe out your entire financial life.
What else?
job loss or reduced income, you build a life based on a certain salary, then suddenly that salary's gone, but your bills don't care that you got laid off. Divorce or family emergencies, these are expensive and often unexpected. Student loans taken at 18 when you had no idea what you were signing up for. I mean, we asked teenagers to sign up for $50,000 in debt before they can legally drink a beer.
And yes, sometimes it's lifestyle inflation and keeping up with the Joneses, but even that often comes from a place of insecurity or lack of financial education, not greed or irresponsibility.
There's also something called financial trauma. If you grew up in a household where money was always tight or where money was never discussed, you often don't develop healthy money habits. You might overspend because you never had anything growing up, or you might hoard money anxiously because you're terrified of being broke again.
And let's talk about how predatory the system is. Credit card companies specifically target young people and people in vulnerable situations. The average college student gets their first credit card offer before they even understand compound interest. They're literally preying on financial ignorance.
So if you're sitting there feeling shame about your debt, I want you to let that go right now. You're not stupid. You're not irresponsible. You're operating in a system that was designed to trap you. And today, we're going to show you how to escape.
Before we get into solutions, let's bust some more myths that keep people stuck in debt. These are beliefs that feel true, but are actually holding you back.
Myth number 1, I'll always be in debt.
This is the most dangerous belief of all. If you believe it's impossible to get out of debt, you won't even try. Why bother making sacrifices if you're convinced it won't work? But here's the truth. People dig out of hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt every single day. We're going to share some of those stories later. It's absolutely possible.
Myth number 2, I need to make more money to pay off debt.
More money helps, sure, but we've seen people making $40,000 a year become completely debt-free, and we've seen people making $200,000 a year who are drowning. The difference isn't income, it's behavior. It's having a plan and sticking to it.
Myth number 3, bankruptcy is the only way out.
Bankruptcy is a tool, and sometimes it's absolutely the right choice. We're not here to shame anyone who's gone through bankruptcy, but for most people, there are options before that. Negotiation, consolidation, strategic payoff methods. Bankruptcy should be a last resort, not a first assumption.
Myth number 4, all debt is bad.
This one's nuanced. A mortgage on a home that appreciates in value, that can actually be good debt. You're building equity. A car loan for a reliable vehicle you need to get to work, that's reasonable debt. It's enabling you to earn money. But $15,000 in credit card debt from impulse shopping or lifestyle inflation, that's the debt we need to eliminate. Not all debt is created equal.
Myth number 5, I'm too far gone. It's too late for me.
I don't care if you're 25 or 65. I don't care if you owe $5,000 or $500,000. It is never too late to start. Every day you wait is a day that interest keeps growing. The best time to start was yesterday. The second best time is right now.
Those myths keep people paralyzed, and paralysis is the enemy of progress. So let's move on to actual solutions. Okay, let's get into the meat of this episode, the actual strategies for paying off debt. There are 2 main methods that financial experts recommend, and honestly, Marcus and I have slightly different opinions on which is better.
This should be fun. Let's break them both down and let our listeners decide what works best for their situation. Because spoiler alert, there's no single right answer. It depends on your personality and your specific debts.
I'll start with my favorite, the debt snowball method. This was popularized by Dave Ramsey, and millions of people have used it to become debt-free.
Break it down for us.
Here's how it works. Step 1, list all your debts from smallest balance to largest balance. Ignore the interest rates for now. Just focus on the total amount owed. Step 2, make minimum payments on everything except the smallest debt. Step 3, throw every extra dollar you can find at that smallest debt. Attack it aggressively. Step 4, when that smallest debt is paid off, take the money you were paying on it and roll it into the next smallest debt. Step 5, repeat until you're debt-free.
Give us an example.
Let's say you have 4 debts: Credit card A with a $500 balance, credit card B with $3,000, a car loan with $8,000, and a student loan with $25,000. Using the snowball method, you attack that $500 credit card first. Maybe you pay it off in 2 months. Then you take whatever you were paying on that, let's say $100 a month, and add it to your credit card B payment. Now, instead of paying $50 a month, you're paying $150. It gets paid off faster. Then you roll that into the car loan, and so on.
And why do you like this method?
Psychology. When you're drowning in debt, you need wins. You need to feel like you're making progress. Paying off that first debt, even if it's just $500, gives you momentum. It proves to yourself that you can do this. You're not just treading water anymore. You're actually moving forward.
Is there research to back this up?
Actually, yes. Studies from Harvard Business Review and other researchers have shown that people using the snowball method are more likely to stick with their debt payoff plan and actually become debt-free. The psychological boost of those early wins creates motivation that carries you through the harder parts.
Okay, fair points. But now let me make the case for my method, the debt avalanche.
Go for it.
The debt avalanche is mathematically superior. Here's how it works. Step 1. List all your debts from highest interest rate to lowest interest rate. Forget about the balance. Focus on the rate. Step 2. Make minimum payments on everything except the highest interest debt. Step 3. Attack the highest interest debt first with every extra dollar. Step 4. When it's paid off, move to the next highest interest rate. Step 5. Repeat until debt-free.
Same example, but now with interest rates.
Same debts, but now with interest rates. Credit card B has $3,000 at 26% APR. That's the killer. Credit card A has $500 at 19%. The car loan is $8,000 at 7%, and the student loan is $25,000 at 5%. Using the avalanche method, you attack credit card B first, even though it's not the smallest balance. Why? Because that 26% interest is costing you the most money every month.
But that could take 6 months before you see any debt completely disappear. That can be demoralizing.
You're right, it requires more patience, but here's the math. By paying off the highest interest first, you save the most money overall. We're talking potentially thousands of dollars in interest savings over the life of your debt payoff journey, money that stays in your pocket instead of going to the credit card company.
So which should people choose?
Let me give you a framework. Choose the snowball method if you need quick wins to stay motivated, if you have several small debts you can knock out fast, if you've tried to pay off debt before and gave up, or if psychology matters more than pure math.
Choose the avalanche method if you're disciplined and can stay committed for the long haul, if you have high-interest debt that's costing you a fortune, if you're motivated by saving money, not just seeing accounts close, or if the math keeps you motivated.
And here's a secret. Some people do a hybrid approach. They knock out 1 or 2 small debts for the psychological win, then switch to avalanche for the rest. There's no debt police coming to arrest you for mixing methods.
The only wrong answer is doing nothing. Pick a method and start. You can always adjust later.
Now let's walk through exactly how to set up your debt payoff plan. Regardless of which method you choose, these steps are the same.
Step 1. The debt inventory. This is the scary part, but it's absolutely essential. Get every single debt written down in one place. Who you owe, how much you owe, the interest rate, the minimum payment, and the due date.
Most people have never seen all their debt in one place. It lives in different apps, different statements, different corners of their brain. Bringing it all together can be terrifying, but you cannot fight an enemy you can't see.
I recommend using a simple spreadsheet or even just a piece of paper. Write it all down. Add up the total. Take a deep breath and remember, this number is not your worth as a human being. It's just information. It's the starting point for your journey.
Step 2, find your extra money. Look at your budget. If you don't have a budget, now's the time to make one. Track your spending for a month. Find every possible dollar you can redirect to debt.
This might mean cutting subscriptions you don't use. How many streaming services do you actually watch? It might mean eating out less, meal prepping on Sunday instead of ordering DoorDash every night. It might mean picking up a side hustle for a few hours a week, or selling stuff you don't need. That treadmill collecting dust in your garage. Turn it into debt payments.
Even an extra $100 a month can shave years off your debt payoff timeline. The math is dramatic. Small amounts add up to huge results over time.
Step 3. Automate everything. Set up automatic payments for at least the minimum on every debt. Never miss a due date. Late fees and penalty APRs are debt killers. One missed payment can spike your interest rate and set you back months.
Step 4. Track your progress. This is crucial for staying motivated. Use an app like undebt.it, which is free. Use a spreadsheet. Use a piece of paper on your fridge. Whatever works for you, but track that number going down. Celebrate milestones. You paid off your first 1,000. Celebrate. You hit the halfway point. Celebrate. Small celebrations keep you going.
And step 5, tell someone. Find an accountability partner, a spouse, a friend, a family member, an online community, someone who will check in on your progress and encourage you when it gets hard, because it will get hard, and having support makes all the difference.
All right, let's take a breath. We've covered a lot of ground. Let me quickly recap where we are.
We started by talking about why debt happens and why it feels so overwhelming. We established that debt is not a moral failure. It's often the result of systems designed to trap you, combined with life circumstances outside your control.
We busted some myths. You won't always be in debt. You don't need to make more money. Bankruptcy isn't your only option, and it's never too late to start.
Then we broke down the 2 main payoff strategies, the Snowball method, where you pay smallest balance first for psychological wins, and the Avalanche method, where you pay highest interest first to save the most money.
Both work. Pick the one that fits your personality and commit to it.
Now, we got a question from a listener that I want to address. David wrote in asking, should I pay off debt or build an emergency fund first?
This is such a common question, and there's a lot of conflicting advice out there. Here's our take.
You need a small emergency fund first. Most experts recommend $1,000 to $2,000 as a starter emergency fund, just enough to cover a minor crisis without going back into debt.
Here's why. If you're throwing every dollar at debt and then your car breaks down or you have a medical bill, what happens? You go right back into debt. The credit card comes out and you're back where you started, feeling defeated.
So the order is small emergency fund first, then attack debt aggressively with everything you've got. Then, after you're debt-free, build a full 3 to 6 month emergency fund.
That small buffer protects your progress. It's not either or, it's both in the right order.
All right. Coming up in the next section, we're going to teach you something most people don't know is even possible: how to negotiate with your creditors. You might be able to lower your interest rates, reduce your balance, or even settle for less than you owe.
Plus, we'll share real stories of people who paid off massive amounts of debt. These stories are incredible and prove that it's absolutely possible. Stay with us. Welcome back. This section is going to be a game changer for a lot of people. We're going to talk about negotiating with creditors. And I know what you're thinking. I can't just call my credit card company and ask for a lower rate, but actually you can, and it works more often than you'd think.
I was skeptical about this too when I first learned about it, but the data is pretty compelling. Let's break down the different tactics.
Tactic number 1. Request a lower interest rate. This is the easiest one to try and has a surprisingly high success rate.
Walk us through it.
You literally call the customer service number on the back of your credit card. When you get a representative, you say something like this: "Hi, I've been a customer for 3 years and I've been making my payments on time. I've noticed that other cards are offering lower interest rates and I'm considering transferring my balance. Before I do that, I wanted to ask if you could lower the APR on my current account. Is that something you can help me with?"
That's it? Just ask?
Just ask. Studies show that about 70% of people who ask for a lower interest rate actually get one. 70%. The worst they can say is no, and if they say no, ask to speak to a supervisor or a retention specialist, or hang up and call back another day. You might get a different representative who's more willing to help.
What kind of reduction can people expect?
It varies, but even a few percentage points makes a huge difference. If you have a $10,000 balance and they drop your rate from 25% to 20%, that's $500 a year in interest you're not paying, and that's on a single card.
Tactic number 2, hardship programs.
If you're really struggling, like you've lost your job, had a medical emergency, or experienced some other major financial setback, most credit card companies have hardship programs. They don't advertise these, but they exist.
What do hardship programs offer?
They can include temporarily reduced interest rates, sometimes down to 0% for a period of time, waived late fees and over-limit fees, lower minimum payments to help you stay afloat, or payment deferrals, where you can skip payments for a month or two without penalty.
How do you access these programs?
You have to ask. Call and explain your situation honestly. Say something like, "I've recently lost my job and I'm struggling to make my payments. I want to pay what I owe, but I need some help. Do you have any hardship programs that could help me stay on track?" Be honest about what's happening. Don't be embarrassed. These programs exist because companies would rather work with you than have you default entirely.
Tactic number 3, debt settlement. This is more aggressive and comes with some risks, but it's an important option to know about.
Debt settlement means negotiating to pay less than what you actually owe. The creditor agrees to accept a lump sum that's less than your total balance, and in exchange, they consider the debt paid.
How does that even work? Why would they accept less?
Think about it from their perspective. If your account is seriously delinquent, like 90 days past due, they're worried they might get nothing. They might have to sell your debt to a collection agency for pennies on the dollar. If you come to them and offer 40 or 50 cents on the dollar, in cash, right now, that's actually a better deal for them than hoping to collect later.
What kind of reductions are possible?
Typically, if you're negotiating from a position of hardship, you might be able to settle for 40 to 60% of what you owe, so a $10,000 debt might be settled for $4,000 to $6,000.
But there are risks, right?
Yes, important warnings here. First, this will likely hurt your credit score. The account will be marked as settled for less than full amount, which is negative. Second, the forgiven debt may be taxable. If they forgive $4,000, the IRS might consider that income, and you could owe taxes on it. Third, don't pay a company to do this for you. There are a lot of scammy debt settlement companies that charge huge fees. You can negotiate yourself for free. And fourth, get any agreement in writing before you pay a single dollar. Don't trust verbal promises.
This isn't for everyone, but if you're facing bankruptcy anyway, settlement might be worth exploring as an alternative.
Tactic number 4, balance transfer cards.
This one can be really powerful if you have decent credit. Explain how it works.
A balance transfer card offers 0% APR for a promotional period, usually 12 to 21 months. You transfer your high-interest debt to this new card, and for that promotional period, every dollar you pay goes to principal, no interest eating into your payment.
That sounds amazing. What's the catch?
A few things. First, there's usually a balance transfer fee of 3 to 5%, so if you transfer $10,000, you'll pay $300 to $500 up front. Second, you absolutely must pay off the balance before the promotional period ends. If you don't, the remaining balance gets hit with the regular interest rate, which can be 20% or higher. Third, you need decent credit to qualify for the best offers.
So it requires discipline.
Serious discipline. But if you can do the math, create a payoff timeline, and stick to it, this can save you thousands in interest. Let's say you have $8,000 in credit card debt at 24%. You transfer it to a 0% card with a 3% fee, so $240. You now have 12 months to pay it off interest-free. That's $667 a month. If you can commit to that, you'll pay $8,240 total instead of potentially $12,000 or more if you kept it on the high-interest card.
The math is compelling, but you have to be honest with yourself about whether you can stick to the plan.
Tactic number 5, consolidation loans.
Another option is taking out a personal loan to consolidate all your debts into one payment.
Right, you get a personal loan for the total amount of your debts. You use that loan to pay off all your credit cards and other debts. Now you have one monthly payment at hopefully a lower interest rate.
What are the benefits?
Simplicity, first of all, one payment instead of juggling 5 or 6 different accounts. potentially lower interest rate, especially if you have decent credit. Personal loan rates can be significantly lower than credit card rates. And a fixed payoff timeline. Unlike credit cards where you can pay forever, a loan has a set end date.
And the risks?
The big one is behavioral. If you consolidate all your credit card debt into a loan but don't change your spending habits, you might rack up new credit card debt on top of the loan. Now you're in twice as much trouble. Consolidation only works if you address the root behavior that got you into debt.
So the loan is a tool, not a cure.
Exactly. It can be helpful, but it's not magic.
Let's talk about some tools and resources people can use.
Great idea. Free apps first. Undebt.it is a fantastic free debt payoff planner. You enter all your debts and it calculates your payoff timeline using either Snowball or Avalanche. It's visual, it's motivating, and it's free.
Mint is another good one for budgeting and seeing all your accounts in one place. YNAB, which stands for You Need a Budget, is paid but incredibly powerful for changing your relationship with money.
For checking your credit and monitoring your debts, annualcreditreport.com is the official free source for your credit reports, not the scammy sites that advertise during late-night TV. This is the real free one mandated by law.
And the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or CFPB, has excellent resources for dealing with debt collectors and understanding your rights.
Sometimes the best tool is the simplest. A spreadsheet or even a piece of paper where you track your progress works great. We'll link a free template in the description.
Okay, we've thrown a lot of information at you. Let's boil it down into a clear action plan. What should someone actually do after listening to this episode?
Let's start with the 5 key takeaways. These are the things we want burned into your brain.
Number 1, debt is not a moral failure. Life happens. Medical bills, job loss, divorce, student loans taken before you knew better. Most debt comes from circumstances, not character. Let go of the shame. It's not helping you.
Number 2, you need a complete picture. This week, list every single debt you have. Face the total number. You cannot solve a problem you won't look at. Yes, it might be scary. Do it anyway.
Number 3, pick a strategy and commit. Snowball or Avalanche. Either one works if you actually stick with it. The worst plan is no plan. Make a decision and start executing.
Number 4, negotiate everything. Interest rates, payment plans, hardship programs, settlements. Ask for help. The worst they can say is no, and often they'll say yes.
Number 5, progress over perfection. Some months you'll crush it and throw extra money at debt. Some months you'll barely make minimum payments. That's okay. Life isn't linear. The key is to keep going. Don't let a bad month turn into giving up entirely.
Now let's talk about your immediate action item. We're calling it the Debt Inventory Challenge.
This week, before the next episode comes out, we want you to do one thing. Sit down and list every single debt you have. The creditor name, the total balance, the interest rate, the minimum payment, the due date. Put it all in one place.
That's it. Don't worry about the payoff strategy yet. Don't worry about finding extra money. Don't worry about negotiating. Just face the number. Create awareness.
You might be surprised. Sometimes when people finally add everything up, it's actually less than they feared. That vague sense of financial doom turns into a concrete number you can work with. And even if it's worse than you thought, at least now you know what you're dealing with.
If you complete this challenge, we want to hear about it. Screenshot your debt inventory, blur out any personal information if you want, and share it on social media. Tag us at Money Story House. Use the hashtag #DebtIsNotTheEnd. We'll feature some of our favorite posts.
For those who want a longer-term roadmap, here's what the next 90 days could look like.
Days 1 through 30. Complete your debt inventory. That's the challenge we just talked about. Create a basic monthly budget if you don't have one. Build a mini emergency fund of $500 to $1,000 and call at least one creditor to ask for a lower interest rate. Just one. Get comfortable with the process.
Days 31 through 60, choose your payoff method, Snowball or Avalanche. Set up automatic payments on all your debts. Find at least $50 to $100 extra per month to put toward debt. Cut a subscription, sell something, pick up a small side gig, and either pay off your smallest debt or make significant progress on your highest interest debt, depending on your chosen method.
Days 61 through 90, celebrate your first payoff or major milestone. You deserve it. Review and adjust your budget based on what you learned. Explore balance transfer or consolidation options if they make sense for your situation, and keep building momentum.
In 90 days, you won't be completely debt-free. That's not realistic for most people. But you'll be on the path. You'll have a system. You'll have momentum. And that changes everything.
Let's take a break from tactics and talk about real people, because sometimes what you need most isn't another strategy, it's proof that this actually works.
I want to share a story that really moved me. There's a woman named Sarah. That's not her real name, but the story is true. She was a nurse with $80,000 in debt. Mix of student loans, credit cards from when she was in school, and a car loan.
80,000 is a big number.
It is. And here's the thing. She wasn't making bad money. Nurses have solid incomes. But she couldn't seem to make a dent. The minimum payments ate up so much of her paycheck, and between rent and bills and life, she felt like she was drowning.
What changed for her?
She said she got angry, like truly furious. She was tired of feeling like her paycheck belonged to everyone else. She calculated how much she was paying in interest each month, and it made her sick. So she decided to go, in her words, a little extreme.
What did that look like?
She picked up extra shifts at the hospital, overtime, weekend shifts, holidays. She sold her relatively new car and bought an older, cheaper one with cash. She moved from a nice apartment to a smaller, cheaper place with a roommate. She did a no-restaurant challenge for an entire year, cooked everything at home.
That's intense.
It was. She said social situations were awkward. Friends didn't always understand, but she kept her eye on the goal. Every extra dollar went to debt. She used the Avalanche method and attacked those credit cards first.
How long did it take?
4 years. 4 years of sacrifice. And then she was debt-free. She said the moment she made that last payment, she sat in her car and cried for 20 minutes, happy tears.
And now?
Now she has a fully funded emergency fund. She's maxing out her retirement contributions, and she just bought a house. She said the 4 years of sacrifice were the best investment she ever made, because now her money is actually hers.
Oris, you have another story to share.
Yeah, this one's a family story. A couple with 2 kids, $120,000 in debt, medical bills from some complications when their second child was born, credit cards that got out of control, a car loan they probably shouldn't have taken.
That's a terrifying number with a family to support.
It is, and they couldn't do what Sarah did. They couldn't sell the house and live with roommates when they have kids. They couldn't work around the clock because someone has to be with the children. So they had to find another way.
What did they do?
They used the Avalanche method because they had a credit card at 29% that was absolutely killing them. They did what they called a no-spend year. For 12 months, they only bought absolute necessities. Groceries, yes. Restaurants, no. Kids needed new shoes because they outgrew them, yes. New toys, no. Family vacation, no.
A whole year with kids. That must have been incredibly hard.
It was. They told me there were moments of real tension, but something interesting happened. They said it actually brought them closer as a family. They had to find free ways to have fun. Parks, libraries, game nights at home, hiking. They talked more. They got creative. The kids learned that fun doesn't require spending money.
How long did the total payoff take?
3 years of intense focus. The no-spend year gave them the biggest momentum, and then they kept the discipline going, though a little less extreme.
Where are they now?
Completely debt-free, full emergency fund. They're now investing for retirement and their kids' college. And they said they'll never go back to that lifestyle of living on credit. The experience changed how they think about money forever.
These stories are incredible, but I think we also need to be honest about something.
Go ahead.
Some people are dealing with situations where the math just doesn't work easily. If you're making minimum wage with $200,000 in debt, the strategies we talked about might not be enough. The timeline might be 10 years or more.
That's true, and in those cases, it might be worth talking to a nonprofit credit counselor, not the scammy debt relief companies you see advertised, but legitimate nonprofit organizations that can help you understand all your options.
And sometimes bankruptcy really is the right choice. It's a legal tool that exists for a reason. It's not a moral failure to use it. It's a fresh start.
The key is don't do nothing. Ignoring debt doesn't make it go away. It makes it worse. Whatever your situation, there's a path forward. It might just look different from someone else's path.
And sometimes the path is longer than you want, but every step forward is still a step forward.
We're coming up on the end of today's episode. Let's recap the 5 things we want you to take away.
Number 1, you are not your debt. Debt is a situation, not an identity. It doesn't define your worth or your future.
Number 2, face the numbers. Do your debt inventory this week. See the full picture so you can make a real plan.
Number 3, pick a strategy, Snowball or Avalanche. Just pick one and start. Action beats perfection.
Number 4, negotiate. Call your creditors. Ask for lower rates, hardship programs, anything that can help. The worst they can say is no.
Number 5, keep going. Progress over perfection. Every dollar paid is a step toward freedom.
Next week, we're tackling a topic that goes hand in hand with everything we talked about today.
The psychology of money. Why we spend the way we spend, why we make irrational financial decisions even when we know better, and how to actually rewire your brain for wealth.
It's going to be a fascinating one. Make sure you don't miss it.
Remember, building wealth is a marathon, not a sprint, and getting out of debt, that's just the first mile. But it's the most important mile, because once you're free from debt, everything else becomes possible.
You've got this. We believe in you. Thousands of people have done exactly what you're about to do. There's no reason you can't be next.
Before we go, if this episode helped you, we have a small favor to ask. First, hit that like button. It sounds simple, but it really helps the YouTube algorithm show this video to other people who need to hear it.
Second, leave us a comment. Tell us your debt story. Tell us which strategy you're going to use. Tell us what clicked for you today. We read every single comment, and your story might inspire someone else who's struggling.
Third, share this episode with someone who needs it. You probably know someone who's stressed about debt but doesn't know where to start. Send them this link. It might be the thing that changes their life.
And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. We put out new episodes every week, and we've got a lot more financial wisdom coming your way.
You can find us at youtube.com/@moneystoryhouse. Follow us, join the community, and let's build wealth together.
Remember, building wealth is a marathon, not a sprint.
And getting out of debt, that's just the first mile. But it's the most important mile, because once you're free from debt, everything else becomes possible.
You've got this. We believe in you. Thousands of people have done exactly what you're about to do. There's no reason you can't be next.
See you next week. Until then, make your money work for you.
Take care, everyone.